It seems like everybody is trying to get us to eat healthier these days. They say we don't need fried chicken when we've got fried cauliflower. They try to replace our sweet chocolate chips with dried up raisins. They even attempt to entice us with fun-loving advertising to sway our views. But the one thing they haven't tried is straight up lying to us. So in this video, I'll be taking these popular health brands and redesigning them to look like junk food, so we could see if the average consumer could actually be tricked into buying food that's good for them without them knowing it. But first, a quick announcement: my new app RefBox is on sale for Black Friday at 40% off. Tons of designers and artists are using it now to keep their references floating above their desktop while they work. Have a full mood board by your side as you design, quickly viewing anything up close. Drag individual items onto your desktop to focus on them specifically, or use the gallery view on a second monitor to see all your items at once. I promise you'll love it, and it helps support the channel. Check out the link down below. And so up first we have Tropicana, 100% pure premium orange juice. Now these guys got in a little bit of trouble back in the day when they tried to do a modern minimal rebrand to their iconic carton. The little orange cap was really cool, but people hated the box design so much, sales plummeted, and the entire rebrand lost them about $65 million. And they ended up just going back to their old packaging anyways. Now I think I can get my new design done for about half that price. And so with a clean slate, I think the first place to start is with a new name for the product, rather than just Tropicana. Something that sounds a little junky, you know? So I'm thinking, since we're putting a little twist on the concept of this product, why not call this Tropicana Twist? But instead of a boring standard font like this, I'll make a custom one by hand. Something that's really blocky and kind of choppy, really just something that has a lot of energy so we can pull out that type of feeling for the rest of the brand. Now clearly a huge part of the original brand was this giant orange on here. So let's have the new design revolve around something similar. But instead of a realistic orange, I want to do an illustrated one that kind of mimics the blocky text I just made, because I'm thinking that more sharp, edgy vibe will make this feel less natural, and thus hopefully less healthy, which is also why I've gone with these really vibrant, punchy colors. Lastly, I'll throw some seeds in here for some extra detail. To go along with our name Twist here, what if we had the peeling of our orange twisting off, wrapping around the logo? That way we mimic the brand name with the actual action that's going on. Basically just tracing over this sketch I made with the same brush that I used for the logo and the orange illustration. Then a darker yellow for the inside of the peel so we can really clearly see where it's folding in on itself, and paint in a top ridge on this peeling so it looks like it has some thickness. And I've chosen this really dark, vibrant blue for the shadow color, because that seems like a really nice complement to all the warmer tones we have everywhere. I do guess that some of these parts would actually be casting a shadow down to the peel below. Now it's at this point that I want to try something a little different. Instead of doing any type of like smooth shading here, I'm wondering if I can go for a more scratchy approach. And of course, the more you put together, the more dense the shadow looks in that part, but then you can spread them out a bit and create kind of like a gradient from dark to light. It's called cross-hatching, and it's been around forever. This is just a bit more of a chaotic, abstract form of it. And because we're not stuck to black and white like normal cross-hatching, I can do both shadows and highlights with this same method. Then I can just go around and do the same thing for the orange peel. One little trick I'm using here is that the shadow hatches for the inside of the peel are the exact same color of orange as the outside of the peel. Then when I'm doing the highlights for the outside of the peel, that's going to be the same color of yellow as the inside of the peel. And just sticking with those same colors but using them in different ways gives us this really harmonious look. A thick coat of pure black should help us bring up some extra contrast in here. A vibrant blue background will make that orange really pop off the package. And you know, the brand's name is Tropicana, so this really could kind of just be like a tropical sky, which are often filled with some light wispy clouds that I personally think will bring this whole scene to life. And of course, we can't have a tropical scene without some palm trees, which I've made purple to match our aesthetic. Plus, I don't want to risk this thing looking too healthy because of green leaves. Now, all of our core elements here can get a shadow to help them pop off the background, but I also think a blue rim light would help with that as well, and put a few little dots in here to act as kind of like some ambient bounce light that's showing up in these shadowy areas. And now stepping back for a second, our logo is looking a little blank, so maybe a 3D look for that for some visual interest, and maybe a sharp bevel on those letters to match all the other sharp things in this image. And you know what? This little striped straw was a huge part of the original Tropicana brand, and I bet you we could turn this eye here into a straw of our own. It's kind of a nice homage back to the original brand, and I think it actually adds a lot of fun and personality to the logo. And while I'm here, let's just go ahead and make the peeling right behind these letters just pure dark. That way things are a little more readable. I want to add in some chunks of orange flying away from the center, as if they've popped off from the sheer force of this orange being unraveled so quickly. They'll get the same visual treatment as everything else, so it all matches. And orange chunks rarely fly through the air without leaving some orange juice in their wake. And now just for some final touches, so this peeling feels bumpy like a real one would. And speaking of texture, I think this whole thing could use some gritty halftones just to have a common visual element that runs through everything, tying it all together. Lastly, I'll stick Tropicana up on the top of the carton, give it a nice shadow, and we can't forget, just like the original design did, we have to show people how to open this thing. Honestly, I had no idea how this was going to turn out, out. I thought it might have been heading for a cliff, but honestly, I am super happy with it. It's one of my favorite designs I've made in a really long time. You know, it almost kind of feels like some type of citrusy, sweet junk food drink you'd get if you lived inside the Spider-Verse. And then next up, we have a wonderful pistachios. Now, pistachios, also known as the smiling nut, because the shape of the shell kind of looks like a smile when they're cracked open. There's basically nothing special about this product, but this brand though, it's just seared into my mind and probably many other people's, just because of that Super Bowl ad way back in the day where Cy is dancing around with a bunch of giant pistachios with legs. I'm really surprised they didn't use just clear cutouts for this, so you could actually see the nuts inside the package, but instead they just used pictures of pistachios to make it look like it's a cutout. Either way, our first step is to get rid of this black luxury look and replace it with a really vibrant green, perfect for a junk food brand. But I'll be honest, just using the word pistachios doesn't sound very junk foody because it's literally the name of a healthy food. So what if we just took out the PI and called it stachios? That sounds a little more fun to me, and I think I can even tie that in with the main visual that I want to go down here. But first, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Framer. Now, I've used Framer for a long time at this point, way before they ever sponsored any of my videos, and honestly, I just can't recommend them enough. Framer is the easiest way to build websites for people who actually want to control what their website looks like using tools they're already familiar with, like their new design pages, which gives you an infinite canvas to build out all of your design ideas on. It works exactly like other tools you've used before. The big difference though is it is 100% free. That's right, you can use this amazing design tool without paying anything. You can create stuff for marketing, like these explainer graphics I made for Refbox, put together your own illustrations with their vector tools, and of course Framer's bread and butter, making a website. Because once you've got a site design that you like, one click here will turn it into a fully functional website. From there, just set up any responsive behaviors that you like so your site looks good on all screen sizes, refine any details with their super intuitive editor, and bring a real website to life without ever needing to know how to code at all. Plus there's tons of built-in components like video players, cool little scrolling carousels, and tons of other components built by the community so you can add all sorts of cool features to your site. And of course, if you do want something a little more plug and play, then there are a ton of really nice looking templates that you can choose from to get you started. And the best part is you can sign up today for free. Make sure to use my promo code here to get 1 month of Framer Pro completely free. My link is down below, check it out, and thanks once again to Framer for sponsoring this video. For now, let me fix up a few of these letters to make them slightly more rounded, to feel a little more soft and fun. Then why don't we really spice up this logo by getting rid of this O and replace it with a little pistachio. I personally think it's always fun to turn letters into actual icons for logos, and this just seemed like the perfect opportunity to do so. For this, I'm thinking a fun, cartoony outlined look, making those 3D as well, because that's a pretty typical look for junk food brands like this. But instead of extruding the letters straight out, I'm going for a more, I guess you would call, inflated look. So these things almost look like little mini balloons. Now all that can be a nice red color, which will both complement and contrast with the green background. And I want to mix things up with some hatchy shading on these, because I'm thinking, you know, pistachios have a coarse shell, and it might be cool to imitate some of that texture here in the logo, which is why I'll throw in a few extra divots here on the letters, just so they better match the 3D part. Since the actual company name is Wonderful, I'll put that right above here in kind of a fun handwritten font. A nice yellow will help it stand out, and of course it can be 3D too. Maybe a little shine on that would even look nice. Now for the central visual element down here, we can't just copy the original by just throwing on a bunch of pictures of nuts, because that would look way too healthy. So I'm thinking we use what every great junk food brand always uses, a mascot. Now see, some companies create a really interesting character, or maybe they'll use an animal for their mascot, but then others are a little less creative, and they just grab their product and slap a face on it. And my friends, that is what we are gonna do. So I've grabbed this image of some real pistachios here for us to reference. So I'll just try to capture the big bulby look of these things, coming up to a point here at the top, and putting that crack that goes down the middle at a slight angle so we get a nice sense of depth. And like you can see right here on the example image, we'll make it look like we can see a little bit of that inside shell from this angle. And now for my brilliant plan, I'm gonna give him a big old mustache, because it is called Stachios after all. And let's not forget that basically every cool mascot out there has an epic mustache. A little mouth to go underneath that to show that he is happy. And because the original design was practically flooded with pistachios, why not just have our pistachio hold even more pistachios? Standing here proudly, showing them all off for everyone to see. Then I'll just quickly outline all of that in kind of a scrappy style to match the logo, making the lines a little crooked and uneven so it has that clear junk food vibe and it's not so pristine and healthy looking. The mustache here just worked perfectly to help break up where that seam was splitting down the nut, because it kind of gives me a natural place to end it so I can place the character's mouth here. Lastly comes some really happy squinty eyes. Just gotta make sure we adjust this one for proper perspective. Of course his base color is gonna be a nice simple brown. Then all of his limbs and his mustache, I'm just gonna make the same dark color just for a bit of consistency. And then the seat inside is gonna be green. To show off that textured shell, I'm gonna make the shading kind of rough and lumpy, really just trying to define a lot of those ridges within it. Just building up any extra depth where I can. And I'll actually do a few different layers of shading to help bring the character to life and to keep him from feeling too flat. Some extra highlights will also really help with that, just in a few areas where the light would be really strong. And of course, we've got to have a bounce light to help shape that lumpy silhouette of his. I'll do a very similar process for the mustache, just making sure the lighting flows along with the way the hair would lay. Same thing with all the highlights and the bounce lights too, to really give this whole thing extra volume. Lastly, how about a few little black dots to show some texture and to match the ones I added up in the logo on the letters. I do think he probably could use a shadow to help separate the green of the nut from the green of the background. And with all those shadows, he does kind of look like he's standing in front of a spotlight or something, which does make sense because he certainly seems like a little showman. And making that spotlight layered will tie in really nicely with the stylized shading of all the other objects. And lastly, just like the original had a little slogan on there, "Get crackin'," I'm gonna make a little star down here that kind of looks like I've slightly painted out of the lines, which will just help it feel more like a background element rather than like a main focal point. And on that, I'll place the new slogan, which embodies a total lack of self-control: go nuts. So what was once a minimal posh brand for healthy omega-3s is now the home of a rootin' tootin' pistachio man who looks like he came straight off your favorite sugar-coated cereal box. And then we have Chobani Greek yogurt. Now, I gotta say, out of all the yogurt brands out there, this is probably my favorite visually. The illustrations they do of all their little food items on the packages are just so good, and it even helps some of their flavors like chocolate feel more healthy than they actually are. But we want the opposite of that, of course, so this whole natural tan look has got to go, and instead, I'm gonna go with a vibrant bluish purple tone. Now, the old package obviously focused entirely on the berries, but we can't do that because it would look too healthy, so I want to take a page out of the cereal guidebook and how they make cereal feel more exciting, specifically with this splash of milk. Now, of course, you know, yogurt isn't milk, but it is closely related, so I think having a splash of yogurt is reasonable enough. I'll just scale that up to fit and situate it towards the bottom, and maybe one more layer to fill out this empty space. Now, of course, something actually needs to be making the splash, and what better to use than some giant berries. And you know, just because we use berries on here, it doesn't mean it's going to look healthy. There are certainly products out there whose packages have fruits on them that are definitely not good for you. And one way to show that on here is to adjust the colors of the fruits. Like, instead of the nice warm tones that the original package had, I'll make these berries feel practically neon, picking up a lot of the purplish tones from the background, which should give them a kind of artificial look. We'll really bump up the shadows for contrast and throw in a harsh bright rim light around the edges. So let's darken up these splashes once again so we can build up more contrast, but then I'll come in and hit those shadows with a purple bounce light from the background. Really just trying to make this whole thing feel like one cohesive scene. Speaking of which, some extra shadows will help us do that, which will be red right here because of the bounce off from the berry. Now, to me, this whole thing kind of looks like a bomb just went off, so I'm gonna rename it to Chobani Boom, because I think that's a reasonable enough name for some kind of berry flavored or sugar-filled treat, which is also why I'm kind of staggering the letters here to make them feel really chaotic and more playful. I do want to round the edges out a bit more for that soft, playful vibe. And of course, we've got to do something with these overlapping letters so they're actually legible. And the perfect thing for that is a nice fat outline. And I'm also making those not perfect, so we can really bring out that kind of rocky, explosive vibe here. I'm thinking a little 3D bevel might look good on these, doing the same thing to the outlines below them, so we kind of get this look where the white parts are stacked on top of the dark parts. Let's get some kind of underglow on these for a bit of dramatic effect, along with a little rim light bouncing off these bottom edges to match. Then all that's going to get a nice drop shadow to help it pop off the package. To help these new letters and berries kind of be tied together into a single unit splashing down into this yogurt, I'm going to stick a secondary splash layer right behind that to kind of form this bowl type of thing, like the splashes are going around the outside of everything. Plus, that added darkness will really help our berries stand out. I'll stick a red pill shape right up top that matches the color of the berry, and on that we will put Chobani. We'll throw on an outline to match the letters, add a touch of shadow for 3D effect, and of course a drop shadow as well. Now everything on here looks energetic and lively, except for the background, so let's fix that. A chunky starburst pattern bursting out from the center should help us out. A slight shadow for added depth, then let's really darken up the upper edges here, so all of our attention is drawn straight in towards the logo and the berries. One last splash of light coming right out from behind our main elements, and a little light bloom on our berries will wrap things up. And with that, we've gone from a high-class, natural-looking berry yogurt to something that looks way too colorful and exciting for it to possibly be made with anything close to real ingredients. So be sure to check out my new app ref box while it's on sale. I guarantee you'll love it, and while you're here, you might as well watch another video. It'll be a lot of fun.